Welcome back to Admit It with Alexis White. I'm so happy to be back here. I love doing the podcast because I get to analyze so many of the different topics that come to my brain with regard to college admissions all the time, and I get to chat with you guys about it in a longer form than just bites on TikTok and Instagram. And of course, I love it when we have guests. But today, you're going to get me all to yourself because we're going to talk about something that's very near and dear to my heart, especially as you families of sophomores and juniors kind of rise up in the ranks and you become rising seniors and rising juniors and also rising sophomore families. You're going to want to hear this, even families of freshmen. I want to break down the 5 biggest mistakes families make in the college admissions process. Because I'll be honest, families make this process actually a lot harder than it needs to be. And I know that seems kind of wild because why would anyone want to make this process harder? It's so difficult. It sounds difficult. Everybody makes it seem really intense. The process is a lot of work, okay? The applications are a lot of work. People will say anything that's worth doing is work, and that's absolutely true. And to do it well is work. But people make it harder than it needs to be because they face these 5 very common and biggest mistakes. So let's break them down because I want you to avoid them. If you fix these 5 things, you're already ahead of probably like 80% of people going through this. So let's get into it. This is the first mistake that people make when facing the college admissions process. Ignoring personal preferences. And when I say personal, I mean the preferences of the student that is applying, not your preference as a parent, your legacy as a family, what you think is best for your child, none of that. What is actually best for the student, their personal interests, style, learning style, social interests, weather preferences. And I do talk about this all the time. You have heard me say the first 2 things I want you to think about in school selection have nothing to do with academics: size and location. So I'm going to circle back to that right here. Families way too often build a college list on rankings, prestige. There's so much panic over what other people think. And you may think, oh, I don't care what anybody else thinks. I only care about what's best for my kid. And then I see how people kind of proceed in this process. And I very often wonder with personal clients, with the clients that come through our business, who's really picking these schools here? You or your kid, or both of you? I mean, and it really should be the kid and both of you. I love it when a client is open-minded about a school that I suggest that maybe they never heard of. I always bring up Elon. Elon is the perfect school for this because people go, Elon, what's that? And in fact, I had 2 clients in the last 2 weeks who visited Elon and said it's their number 1 choice. And I was like, yes, because I knew it was so perfect for their kids. I knew it. Size, location, vibe, the type of kids that go there, the academic offerings, all the things. I was hitting my tenets of, how to pick a school. When people listen to me, of course, I get excited. A lot of people don't listen to me. A lot of people have their own ideas. So rankings, prestige, what other people think, and they really ignore what the student actually wants. Remember, this is the person who's going to be living there for 4 years. Yes, presumably, you are paying for it as a parent, and certainly you will and should have your opinion about certain things having to do with cost. Actually, really ultimately with finances. I think that that's the main thing, right? Because if the school is too far away, it might be too costly to go visit. I understand there are extenuating circumstances, but when we are talking about types of schools, I want you to zero in on your kids' learning style. Do they need small class sizes? Are they okay with big class sizes? Do they need a lot of students there? Do they need a lot of energy in sports and whatever? Do they need smaller, cozier, more quaint? Where do they thrive? Let me say this clearly. A school can be top ranked. It can be the quote unquote best school that you got into, and it can be completely wrong for you. I've seen students go to huge schools when they wanted small ones. I've seen students end up in the middle of nowhere when they really wanted a city. I've seen students choose majors they hate because they're practical. That's what's going to get me a job. And that's how you get burnout. That's when I get the phone call. October, November, December. I got to get out of here. I hate it. By the way, I'm the college psychic. I feel like I need to start a new show called College Psychic because I called it. I will always call it. I will look at the people in my office and go, she's leaving after 1 year. There's no way she's going to like this experience. Am I sometimes wrong? Do I sometimes wish I was wrong? Absolutely. But rarely. I've done this a long time. I really know what's a match. So how do we combat this issue? I want you to start at my number one thing, which is, do I want big or small? That's size, obviously. Do you want a city? Do you want to be in the suburbs? Do you want to be in a campus bubble? Do you want like a Syracuse or an Elon or something where you're not really like leaving campus, or a High Point, or where like the campus is the life and that's what's happening and outside the campus is meh? Do you want to be cold? Do you want to be warm? Do you want to be close to home? Do you not care? Do you want to be driving distance from home? What's the energy around that? Do you care about sports, big social life, big energy? Do you want mellow? What kind of classes do you actually learn best in? Do you need a lot of teacher attention, more hand-holding? Are you good walking into a lecture with 400 people, taking your notes and leaving and knowing exactly what happened and going to a couple of teacher assistant-led meetings? That's what I had at UCLA. I was okay. I survived that. That was not a big deal for me. But for a lot of students, it's not okay. It doesn't work. And that's okay. Everybody has a learning style. We're not in a classroom forever, you guys. Everyone has a specific learning style. We're not in a classroom forever. We're trying to survive these kind of core years of our lives where we are having to acquire information. And in what way do we do that best? Once you end up in the working world, you will end up figuring out how you learn best, a lot of times based on the experience that you had in high school and college. So if you're acquiring a new skill for work, or you're learning a new approach for how your team is going to be organized or whatever, you're going to know. We acquire those skills that are really essential for later in life now. So whatever helps you be successful in that realm, that's what you want to be approaching in high school. Your learning style is not going to change. It's not going to be like all of a sudden, I was terrible in a big room with 600 people, but now I'm great. It's not going to work like that. At the end of the day, you are not picking a trophy. Okay. I always find it fascinating when you go on the tour at USC. For those of you who've toured USC, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They take you into the trophy room. It is the jewel in the crown. The Heisman trophies, the this, the that. I'm like, who cares about this? It's a tourist trap. They want you to go straight from there, obviously, to the student store and buy a bunch of crap. But when you're selecting a school, you are not selecting a trophy. You are picking where you're going to live for 4 years and learn for 4 years and build a network for 4 years. This should feel like a fit. It's not a flex. And in it being a fit, by the way, it is a flex because you're going to be at the school that's right for you. You're going to be happy when other people are turning around and transferring. The second biggest mistake that people make in the college admissions process is not being realistic about academic ability. Are you somebody who has learning differences? Do you need extra time? Are you the kind of person who needs tutoring in every subject? You just need that extra one-on-one reinforcement. Is writing a challenge for you? Is math a challenge for you? This is building on mistake number one, which is, of course, ignoring personal preferences. So there's preferences and there's academic ability. And let's just be real. If your kid's a borderline student, if your kid's a super strong student, what type of college is going to help them thrive? Do they need to be around a lot of other super high achieving, super driven kids? Because that's their vibration. They're going to be bored if they're around kids who aren't as smart as they are, to be honest. Maybe you've got a really smart kid who doesn't need to be around a bunch of people like them. They're good in a diverse environment with lots of other types of things. They go on their own way and they're pretty self-driven. Fine. Maybe you have a kid or you are a kid who struggles. And this is hard for them. To do the work is hard. Even to manage your own schedule is hard. Are you going to need learning support? If you're going to go to a big rah-rah, should it be like a University of Arizona where you have the SALT program? It's really helpful for learning differences. You're going to have academic advisement. You're going to get more personal attention. You can pull that through all 4 years. Just do it for 1 year. Whatever works. Also, academic ability fits into this piece of things. Are they going to be able to do the work at the college? Also, be real about what your kid's GPA actually is. We hear these weird outlier stories of oh my God, so-and-so got a 3.5 and I can't believe they got into insert selective school here. Those are outliers. They are not the norm. Your child is not an outlier. They are the norm. So when we're thinking about norm in statistical data, we are looking at average. Okay. Meaning I'm not saying your child is average. I'm saying we are looking at averages. We need to be at or above the school's published GPA average or test score average in order to be a numbers fit. Numbers don't lie. Schools will look at the numbers before they look at anything else. Don't expect that you're special. Do you get to pick a couple reaches where maybe you get to be special? Sure. I'm not denying you that. But to have a successful admissions process and to not fall into the trap of the 5 mistakes that people make during the college admissions process, you're going to be real about that middle 50%. A smart list has a couple reaches, a healthy set of solid target schools, and true likely schools. And I've said this before, a school is not a likely or a safety or whatever you want to call it if you're not going to go there. It's not even a thing. It shouldn't even be on the list. If University of Oregon is your safety and you go visit it and you hate it, take it off the list. It's not a safety. You're not going to go there. Every year I see strong students have to make the choice to go to schools that they always thought were going to be like more like their safeties or targets. Make sure you love every school on your list, okay? That's how you're going to end up with options and not stress. When you have a reach-heavy, top-heavy list, you're setting yourself up for a lot of heartache. The third mistake that people make in the college admissions process is starting too late. By the time you're a junior, a lot of the foundation is already set, right? Your GPA, your course rigor, your involvement, that ship has kind of already passed. Like, you want to be aware of leadership opportunities or, things you might want to explore rigor-wise with your coursework, or maybe other classes you want to take, or a summer program you want to do, or a job you want to have, or any of those things. We want those wheels to be turning sophomore year, if you're a particularly motivated student, 9th grade. Doesn't mean that if you get started really actually thinking about the college admissions process junior year, you're like too late, as in like, oh my God, you're not going to get in. No, I'm not fear-mongering you, but I'm saying it is a mistake to start too late because it makes the process so much harder. You're just playing catch up. There's a lot of scrambling, especially like with test prep and like, oh my God, my son took the PSAT and he got a 950. Okay, well, presumably he may have taken the PSAT in sophomore year as well. There may have been a score, and I have a lot of families who ignore that sophomore year PSAT if they do take it. If you didn't take it, that's fine too, but a lot of schools administer it. And they don't see that as a sign kind of writing on the wall like, oof, maybe we're not going to pursue testing. Maybe we're going to have a long road ahead of us in terms of tutoring or prep or whatever, and that's costly. So you just want to kind of have your ducks in a row. Think about how far ahead we'll plan for trips or events, Christmas morning and who's coming over and who's bringing what and all those things, like for something so basic. We need to be doing that. The students who have the smoothest admissions process are really starting earlier, and they're not being obsessive. They're just being intentional. So freshman and sophomore year, you're exploring, you're trying things, you're building your interests. You're kind of like molding that stuff. Maybe you're going to move away from a certain athletic pursuit that no longer serves you. You don't like it anymore, and you want to really deep dive into school politics. And that's really where you really want to spend your time. And you're vying for a presidential position next year or whatever. Just start kind of being intentional about those things. Junior year, you're getting focused, you're visiting schools, you're prepping for testing, and then senior year, obviously you're applying. And you are leveling up in certain areas as well. All those things will be on your common application. And by the way, shameless plug here, go to my website and check out my workshops, because I do a lot of workshops on filling out the Common App, on rising senior boot camps, rising junior boot camps, rising sophomore boot camps. Check out the workshops that I have upcoming, but then also the ones I have available for purchase, because I teach a lot of the tips and tricks for this type of stuff on a deeper level, on a more micro level. So I want you to have access to that. I think people think starting earlier makes the process more intense, because it's like, oh my, do I even need to think about that right now? But it actually makes it less stressful, and it also makes it more cost effective. Think about the tours. Think about all that stuff that costs money. If you're planning on maybe taking a trip to see colleges in 10th grade, why wouldn't you be planning that 6 months ahead of time? It costs money, obviously, to fly everybody or, drive, stay in a hotel, eat out, all that stuff. So the earlier you get started, the better. The fourth mistake people make in the college admissions process is overvaluing prestige. Okay, we have to talk about this because a lot of families chase prestige like it's the whole point. Like, it's an Ivy, it's in the top 20, it's highly ranked, it's blah, blah, blah. It's the most highly ranked public business school in the country. It's the most the STEM, or I hear it all the time. I hear it all day. If I sound frustrated, I am, because it doesn't matter. I get it. It feels important, but here's the reality. Prestige does not guarantee a better experience. It does not guarantee a better outcome. It does not guarantee a better life. If you as a student or your child is unhappy there, they are going to leave. There are students at top schools who are overwhelmed, they're unhappy, or they're like just average in a really competitive environment. That's also not a great feeling. And there are students at less selective schools who are getting incredible opportunities. They're building strong networks, strong relationships. They're standing out. And also, I don't want to minimize the importance of personal life. When your kid is in an environment where they're going to thrive, where they're happy, where they're comfortable, where they feel confident failing upward, that means they're going to pursue relationships. You know, they're going to have romantic relationships. They're going to have friendships. They're going to navigate the complexity of the world. They're going to have breakups. They're going to have makeups. All these things are the soft skills you need to be successful in the real world. They're the skills you need for child rearing. They're the skills you need in the office. College is an incubator for all of that. All of that happens in those 4 years. Maybe your kid needs to go to your local in-state college, which is great, going to give them great opportunities. And you don't need to stretch yourself like crazy when you know that that school is actually going to be a really good fit for your kid. Maybe your kid wants to go to grad school. Or maybe you want to go to grad school. I keep saying your kid. Maybe you're a kid listening to this. So instead of asking yourself, what's the best school that I can get into? What's the most impressive school I can get into? I want you to ask yourself, where am I going to thrive? And if you listen to past podcasts of mine, where I've interviewed some very, very interesting, influential, successful people, and I always say successful in their own right. Everybody's definition of success is different. People who've had many different iterations of their career, people who have been very successful in entertainment or at the university level, or, you know, the coach of the Michigan baseball team. Lots of ladder, lots of stepstones, lots of getting to different places from starting at lower rungs. And sometimes that starts with your undergraduate experience as a stepping stone to where you ultimately want to be. The fifth mistake people make in the college admissions process is waiting too long to visit colleges or not visiting colleges at all. I cannot tell you how important it is to get yourself on a couple of college campuses. I know college tours are expensive. Traveling, you know, doing that big East Coast tour, that big West Coast tour, or the big Midwest tour, it may or may not be an option. If you have the means to do those tours, you don't have to see every school you're applying to. But I highly recommend it. If it's not in the cards, that's totally fine too. Do local tours. Go see a couple of big rah-rahs that are within driving distance. Go see a couple of smaller liberal arts that are within driving distance. Get the vibe. Try to get to an urban school. Try to get to a more kind of suburban or rural school. I just want you to see what it feels like when a school kind of seems like it's way too big, or wow, this place is like smaller than I expected, or the vibe kind of feels off, or it's, you know, it's too removed, or there's too much going on. I want to be a little bit more removed, or actually, I really like this. This school has, you know, 7,000 undergrads, and I really like that. Where there is a Tulane type of school, there are other types of schools that are similar. Should you go visit them? Maybe, maybe not, but if you've seen Tulane, then you can start adding schools to your list that are similar. I've had students completely change their college list after visiting. Like, schools they were totally sure about, dropped off the list. Like, nope, I was certain I was going to love such and such, but guess what? Nope. Schools they hadn't even considered. If you wait until senior year, it gets really tricky. The timing is very hard, especially with testing, especially with applications. You only have a teeny tiny window to visit schools. So here's what I recommend. If you can start visiting little by little, sophomore and junior year, even just a few schools, right? One big, one small, one in a city, one more rural. Who can say that? One more rural or suburban. This is going to give you so much clarity. It actually is going to save you money in the process, because you are going to save a lot of time and a lot of energy, and ultimately money, because the applications cost money, when you start taking things off the list and replacing them with better fits. And I want you to remember, you're choosing where you're going to live, not just where you're going to get it. This is a commitment. Here are the 5 biggest mistakes that people make in the college admissions process. The first, ignoring personal preferences. The second, not being realistic about academic ability. The third, starting the process itself too late. The fourth, overvaluing prestige. And the fifth, waiting too long to visit or not visiting at all. If you avoid these, you're going to be in a much better position. It's not about getting into the most impressive school. It's about ending up somewhere that fits you best, that challenges you, and that gives you real opportunities, and that you walk away from going, wow, that was an extremely beneficial experience. And that's what actually matters. Now I'm going to go to emails because we've got some really good questions from people that I want to address. Hi, my son did not get into his top choices, but was accepted to Northeastern, UC Irvine, UF, Wisconsin, SMU with scholarship, Kelley Business School. Those are pretty great. He wants a school where there's school pride and community. He's now undecided on his career path. Okay, that's fair. He's leaning towards Wisconsin, UF, and SMU. He's done virtual tours, but we can't seem to pull the trigger. Would love to hear your thoughts. Wisconsin, UF, and SMU. Wisconsin and UF are big. SMU is small compared to those schools. So I want to go back to what I always talk about with respect to size. Let's not think about name. Let's not think about prestige. Let's not think about any of those things. Let's just think about, what is your kid going to enjoy the most? Do we like big lectures? Wisconsin, since you've never visited, and this is where visiting comes in, because you would go to Madison and you'd really see, like, is this the place for me? Or you'd go to Gainesville and see if is this the place for me? So this is a very hard decision to make when you haven't seen these schools. SMU is a much smaller campus vibe. Wisconsin is freezing. I love it. It's one of my absolute favorite schools, but it is big. There's a lot happening there. And if that's what he wants and he feels like he can, be successful in that kind of environment and take advantage of all the things, great. Florida is a really nice balance, I feel, between the two, because you're getting the better weather. You're also getting the access to, big public university stuff, the sports, the rah-rah, the diverse community as far as like kids coming, from all over the place, all socioeconomic backgrounds, all that stuff. Can you get on a plane? Although by the time this podcast comes out, you're going to have committed. So I feel like I need to email you back before this comes out. But I'm going to say, if big rah-rah is the vibe, then it's Wisco or UF. If weather is a consideration, it's UF. If you want a more kind of connective, closer experience as far as smaller classes and that type of thing, then I would go SMU. But here's where visiting really, really helps. Hi, Alexis. I had a question I was hoping to get your perspective on. Is it better to attend a larger, more prestigious business school or a smaller one where there's less competition and potentially easier access to resources? Does the prestige usually outweigh the increased competition when it comes to opportunities? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Oh my God, I love this. I love this. I love this because it's exactly what we were just talking about. Where is your kid going to thrive? I want to remove prestige from it. Okay. Larger is great if your kid thrives in that type of environment. In the larger schools, a lot of times the opportunities have to be sought out by students. You have to look for them. They're there, but there's a lot of competition to get into clubs. There's a lot of competition among students. It's intense. I know that for some kids, they can certainly academically they can do the work and they'll be fine in that environment, but emotionally, they'll feel stunted and it's hard and they'll be overwhelmed. Some kids that I work with are beasts. They will go out there and they will just rock it. And they will be sitting in the front of every class. They will be at the president of every club and they will push and they have no shame and they'll go, go, go. One is not better than the other. The smaller, where there's a little bit less competition, is really nice because for a certain type of personality, they're going to harness everything that's available to them, start really nurturing relationships with professors, with fellow students who might go off to grad school or to let's say we're talking about business, or to a firm where they will be, recruiting If your kid thrives better in a smaller environment and you know they're going to come out of their shell a little bit more, then it kind of outweighs the so-called prestige of the other situation if they're going to be more reserved, if that makes sense. So what I want you to do is I want you to ask yourself a question. Forget the prestige piece. Take that out of it. Where has your kid historically been most successful? In a classroom of 20 or in a classroom of 120? And from there, I want you to narrow your choices. If the answer is, my kid's fine in either, they'll be totally fine, then maybe you're leaning towards the larger. If you're like, well, tend to do better when there's accountability, somebody knows their name, then you know your answer. That's it for today's episode of Admit It with Alexis White. Please email admititwithalexis@gmail.com because I would love to address your questions on the podcast. And don't forget to join my workshops, check out my website, see what we've got coming up. There are so many amazing things. You can join my Q&As. I've got you. Hope to see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to Admit It with Alexis White. If you're working on your college applications and want guidance every step of the way, visit alexiscollegeexpert.com to find resources and support tailored for you. For even more tips, stories, and college insights, make sure to follow me on TikTok and Instagram @collegeexpert. Until next time, good luck, and remember, you don't have to do this alone.